So yeah, that's it for connective tissue proper. Fluid connective tissue, what I want you to know at this point is that blood and lymph, there are fluid so these are connective tissue. Your blood is a connective tissue. But basically, why is it that? Well, compared to epithelia, which is a sheet of cells that covers something and doesn't have blood vessels, and compared to muscle cells, which contract, compared to neurons or nervous cells that conduct electrical impulses, blood is probably closest. So you can think of it this way. Another way of thinking of connective tissues, if it's not epithelium, if it's not a muscle cell, if it's not a neuron, it's a connective tissue. So this is why it's the broadest category. So instead of thinking of it having a solid protein fibers, another way of thinking about blood as a connective tissue is that it has proteins, but they're not solid. And they still carry cells, and these are called formed elements, but that's the thing we cover in PHYL 1 for 2. And so they still have cells, they still have ground substance, and they still have proteins, but instead of being solid protein fibers like collagen and elastin, then reticular fibers, these are different types of proteins. Yeah, so what we have here, extracellular matrix, so solid and fluid, extracellular ground substance. And things that with blood, just think of it as is extracellular matrix for blood. Instead of being solid, you just have fluid extracellular protein fibers that are able to dissolve in the ground substance of blood. So the extracellular matrix of blood is pretty much everything. So if you take a whole blood sample, have a phlebotomist draw a blood sample and spin it down, you have all the cells on the bottom, but the liquid part, that contains all of that ground substance, all these proteins, all these solutes, and all these electrolytes. So that's what we call plasma. So plasma is the extracellular matrix of blood. So yeah, it still has fibers and ground substance, but instead of being solid, it's fluid. Yep, so plasma. And plasma proteins, at this point, just know that the extracellular matrix of blood is a special type of matrix that doesn't have collagen and elastin like connective tissue proper. It has other proteins like albumins, which are, well, this is like something we cover more in detail next semester. But globulins, including your antibodies, and proteins important in forming the clots when you bleed. Okay, and support connective tissue, just know for at this point, cartilage and bone.